Welcome to the last talk of Oculus Connect 2. You've made it through. Congratulations. I'm super excited to announce two guys who are going to be answering your questions, burning questions about the Oculus social platform for developers. The first guy comes from Facebook. He's been at Facebook for a while. He's now at Oculus and changing the world. So please welcome Gareth Davis.
Hi everyone, I'm Gareth Davis, Product Manager at Oculus, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about the Oculus Platform. So this session is divided into two parts. The first part, we're going to do a deep dive on social VR. We're going to give you a tour of all the social products we're building internally and share some of the lessons that we've learned as we've been building them. And then secondly, Adam's going to come on and give you a technical overview of the Platform SDK, showing you how you can build these experiences into your own products. So let's get started with social. So we're huge believers in the power of social VR. We believe that social VR is way more compelling than single-player VR. Our goal is to allow you to go any place, anytime, with anyone. And as such, we're building social features into our products and into our platform on both mobile and PC. So why are we so excited about social VR? Well, humans are social animals. Everything we do has a social context. Our work, our play, our interactions, our communications. We spend all our time with other people, our friends, our family, our co-workers, and we meet new people all the time. Online, we spend our time playing games, we Skype, we Facebook, we Instagram, we text and we chat. And offline, we go to movies together, we go to concerts and sporting events. And if you think about the best experiences of your life and your favorite activities, they're almost always with other people. So not only does social VR lead to a more compelling experience, but we find that you tend to discover new experiences through your friends. You spend a lot more time in those experiences, and you're much more likely to return, driving retention and engagement. So we get better experiences, more discovery, more retention, more engagement, and people want to share those experiences. Through word of mouth, they'll tell other people about your products. Now, for many of us, our first experience in VR was a solo one. And we're just starting to see the first social experiences. And for all of you that have used Toybox, you'll know how amazing it is that you show up in that experience and the avatar in front of you is a real person. You believe instantly that they're there. And what's remarkable is that this person, of course, is physically somewhere else. And they could be anywhere in the world in any time zone. But the second you enter Toybox, they're there with you. And we call this social presence. Now, the three areas of focus we have in social are connecting people together so that you can have this kind of Toybox experience inside of VR. Secondly, helping you build social presence, so helping you make sure that the people that are there in front of you believe are really there. And thirdly, enabling people to share those experiences with everybody, both synchronously and asynchronously. So let's start with connecting people. So in Toybox, that person is truly there immediately. But how do we do that for every application? Well, to do this, we're building a set of social features into our products and platform. The first is the user profile, and this is the you inside the system. It contains information about you, your name, your ID, your avatar, your picture. And of course, you can choose who sees that information. You can visit other people's profiles, and you become friends. And as you become friends with people, you build up a list, a friends list, of people where you can see what they're doing, you can see what movies they're watching and what games they're playing. You can invite them to join in your activity, or you can request to join in theirs. So suddenly we have a group of people going around with us that we can experience in VR together. Now we're introducing a concept of rooms, which are essentially lobbies. And these are shared spaces where you can gather groups of people together to go and have an experience. And we have public rooms where anyone can drop in and out at any time. And we have private rooms where you can carefully select who's in that room with you. Now we've taken all of those APIs and those concepts, and in Gear VR, for social cinema, this is the UX. On the left-hand side, you see all the different channels in social cinema that you can interact in. In the center, you see the list of rooms. You see the public rooms and the private rooms. You can see the content playing in them. You can see who's in them. So you can choose, do you want to have an experience with a certain set of people? Or do you want to have a certain content experience no matter who's in the room? You can, of course, create your own room and invite other people. And on the right-hand side, we show you a list of friends, their activities, with invites and requests. And this is just how we've built it for our experience. You can take the APIs and skin this however you want to do for your application. Okay, so now we've connected people together in VR, we've brought people together. How do we build social presence? Now, we're really excited to see Toybox inspire so many people to begin to build social apps and games. There are a ton of multiplayer games that we think are going to be super compelling inside of VR because those people will be truly there with you for the first time. And there are many classifications of apps around photo sharing, video conferencing, that once they're brought into VR, it's going to be amazing to have those experiences with other people no matter where they are in the world. And we expect a whole slew of apps around fields like education, where you can have a virtual classroom with a teacher and students, have the true college experience from your couch. And we just can't wait to see what everybody builds in the social VR space. Now, I wanted to show you a couple of applications we're building internally and share the lessons that we've learned as we've gone ahead and built these. The first is social cinema, and this replicates the experience of going to a movie with people you know. Now, we place you in a private room, and there's a set of people in there. You can all chat through voice chat. We arrange the seats so that you can see each other and interact. And we have a host in the room who determines what content is playing and moderates the room. And we have a whole slew of content you can experience in here, from long form, short form, and live streaming. Now, we're seeing different types of interactions inside social cinema already. So one of the great experiences here is being in a private room with a significant other who may be in a different location. And watching a movie together can be a really intimate experience. There are certain short-form content, such as watching cat videos or movie trailers, where the audience tends to be a bit more rambunctious, right? A lot more people shouting out or talking to each other. It really becomes an excuse to have a conversation. And then when we're seeing with live streaming of game tournaments, a real buzz and energy in the room where you're participating in this global event that's just really, really exciting. And so we're having a ton of fun inside of social cinema. It's on the demo floor if you guys can check it out. And we can't wait to roll this out to everybody. The next application we're working on is social photos. People love taking and sharing photos. Billions of photos are taken every single day. And there's something magical about looking at a photo together with somebody else. We put you in this immersive 360 environment with another person. You can talk to them, ask them questions, make plans, share memories. We indicate where people are looking and when they're talking. And you can have this magical experience of reliving memories. Or with 250,000 different photos, you can go almost anywhere in the world and have this amazing social experience around photos. Now, as we've been building these applications and seeing learnings from Toybox, there are a few things that we want to share with you guys. The first is that we're finding believability is far more important than realism. I think it's really natural for all of us to want to make these experiences as real as possible. And for instance, in Toybox, we take things like body motion and voice and make them really accurate. And that's what's building the presence in this experience. But there are other things that are really hard to do right, particularly eyes and lips. And these turn out to be two of the most important cues for social interaction. Now in Toybox, we just mask both. But in cinema and in photos, we use cues to help you understand what is going on in a situation. So we encourage you to push realism as far as you can. But when you hit a wall and you're about to fall into the uncanny valley, switch to believability and use cues to help the social interaction. The interesting part here is this amplifies the overall experience of presence. Visual abstraction is really working. So Toybox is disembodied blue head and hands where you can't see the mouth or the face. And if you were to explain this to me or even just see this picture, how is that ever going to work? But the second you're in Toybox, the beauty and the realism of the motion and hearing that person's voice lets your brain fill in the believability, and you just know that that person's there. So figure out which things really work for you in your applications around the visual abstraction. Next, we're finding that voice is absolutely essential. In movies, more than half of the experience is audio. And in our social experiences, we're finding that voice, particularly spatialized voice, is critical to this sense of social presence. And of course, spatialized voice works by figuring out the timings and the amplitude of sound so you can locate someone in 3D space. And then we use the attenuation of the wavelengths to figure out the distance. And the minute that you know that a voice is coming from a particular spot, your presence is amplified. And this is particularly important in rooms where there are multiple people. So social cinema, where we have 5 people in the room, when more than one person can be talking at a time, the spatialized voice really helps you understand that, okay, this person over here is talking, and you'll turn and have a conversation with them. Next up, cues for speech and gaze. So in Toybox, we kind of punted on these two things. But in social photos, we put in very simple indicators for both. We place a cursor on the inside of the dome, and that indicates where an avatar is looking. And this is a really important social cue, because now I know that the other person in the room is looking at the Eiffel Tower or the Champs-Élysées or at me. And this is a really important social signal and conversation starter in many cases. As for talking, we put a simple animation in front of the mouth that moves up and down, and it shows you kind of amplitude of the voice here. And this just is a really interesting cue for me to know when somebody is talking and when they've stopped talking, and the kind of things that they're saying in addition to what I'm hearing. Focusing on shared activity is really important. All of our experiences have things for people to do. In Toybox, there's a ton of toys in there, and you play all sorts of mini games. In cinema, of course, you're watching a movie together. In photos, looking at photos. And what we find is when we build in an activity, that the perception shifts from, is this person real? Are they really here? To, oh, cool, we're doing things together, right? We're building blocks. We're playing ping pong. And there's enough other signal into the brain that your brain fills in the rest. We found pretty early on just putting a couple of avatars in the same room together and like go hang out, go do things, it was really awkward and didn't lead to any kind of meaningful behavior, and the presence just went way, way down. One thing we're seeing is that the position really shapes the kind of interaction you have. So in cinema, we arrange you in a semicircle so you can see everybody at the same time. And of course, this is completely different in the real world. In a theater like this, we're in a row, and it actually makes it very hard to have a group conversation, and that's probably quite deliberate. In Toybox, we begin by placing you standing facing each other over a table and your arm's length apart. This is an incredibly collaborative positioning, right? You're facing each other, you can see each other, there are things to do, and people build things together very quickly. Later on in Toybox, we switch you side by side in the shooting gallery. And of course, now you're in a much more competitive environment, and you can't see the other avatar anymore. You can hear them through spatialized voice, but you're a little disconnected from them. And as you're going through the process of shooting different things with different weapons, of course what happens is you begin to turn around and shoot the other person, and it descends into competitive play. This is fine, but it's very interesting to note how different that experience is than when we begin you standing facing each other. In another app, we place you facing each other standing, but at a long distance away. So you see the person kind of on the horizon. And this turns out to be a pretty antagonistic positioning, because you're not quite sure what that person wants or what they're doing, and why are they so far away. And it really kind of makes you feel a bit concerned and kind of triggers the friend or foe fight or flight motion. So really pay attention to positioning, because it absolutely shapes what happens in the room. Another example here is in cinema, we made the heads really, really big at one point. And this was cool because you could see all these really big heads, but suddenly people were way too close. And you got this sense that your personal space was being invaded. So we separated the seats a little bit, and that just made it feel a bit more comfortable. So you've done a ton of work in building presence. You're following a lot of these kind of guidelines. Now you've built it, the key is to maintain it, right? It's really easy to have kind of simple holes in the experience kind of take you out of it. And I think it's really important to find those holes and kind of plug them. One for me is in Toybox. Whenever it descends into space shooting here, I duck under the table both to take cover but also to shoot my opponent under the table. And of course, when you look under the table, there's nothing there. Because we don't show legs. And my bullets go straight through, and I'm instantly taken out of the experience. Now what I do, of course, is pop my head back up, and I see them like, oh, okay, we're back. But for a minute, there was a disturbance in the continuum. And a very simple fix there, of course, would be to put a wall underneath the table so I can still duck down and hide, but I can't see through. I can't see that the avatar isn't there. So I encourage you to look for the holes in your experience and plug them wherever you can and keep that high level of presence. Okay, let's talk about sharing. So people love to share content. And VR content is so awesome that you just want to share that even more than normal. We're really excited that the first kind of sharing is now occurring, where you can take 360 video or generated content in this case and share that out with over 1 billion people on Facebook today. And what's really cool, of course, is you can take that experience and put it in your headset and have the same VR experience, very immersive, but in an asynchronous way. And this opens up a ton of new use cases and a ton of new users that aren't necessarily in VR at the same time as you are. And of course, the next step here is taking what you're seeing in VR and broadcasting that out. And that way other people can share in your experience both synchronously and asynchronously, and you can go back and see things you've done and relive them. Okay, so those are 3 of the areas that we're really focused on internally: connecting people together to have amazing social experiences in VR, building social presence so you feel that people are truly there, and then enabling sharing so that you can have this experience with everybody, whether they're in VR or not. And to do this, we're building a whole set of APIs into our platform. And to walk you through those APIs and how to build social, game services, and commerce into your apps, I'd like to introduce Adam.
All right, thanks, Gareth. So my name's Adam Hupp. I'm an engineer at Oculus, and I'm here to introduce the new Oculus Platform. So when I was growing up, I read a ton of science fiction, and I think we've kind of heard this from a lot of people today. And it all took place in the metaverse and the Matrix and those places. And in the mid-90s, that seemed impossibly far away. But everyone's here today because you can sort of see a little glimmer of this being a real thing. And now, as developers and game designers, you're tasked with building these virtual worlds that we've been dreaming of, everyone's been dreaming of. But this is tough. Doing real quality social VR requires a lot of infrastructure. And so Oculus is introducing the platform. It's a set of services and an SDK you can drop into your games to provide social features, game services, and commerce. So I'm going to walk through a few of the core features of the platform. For social features, we'll be offering user identity and friends. In game services, we'll be offering leaderboards, achievements, networking, matchmaking, and invites. And for commerce, you'll be able to implement in-app purchases. The SDK will be released in the winter of 2015 this year, with support for both C# and C on both the Gear VR and PC. So we hope that your apps will be as portable as possible. I'll be walking through, over the next few minutes, I'll be walking through a few of the features that we're most excited about. In a few cases, I'll show code samples. The goal here isn't to do a deep dive into how you might implement the SDK. A lot of it's still in flux, things are in development, but just to really give you a flavor of what it kind of looks like today. What I'd like you to keep in mind is how some of these features might be useful for your upcoming projects, and also what we're missing that would really help you build something amazing. So if you're a developer building a social VR app, it's not going to feel complete if people can't experience it with their friends. So we're building out a friend graph, as Gareth mentioned, that'll be exposed in both the store and in Oculus Home. So with the Platform SDK, you'll be able to query for a user's friends. The way we expect you might use this is, for example, you could build your own game-specific matchmaking using the information you have about those users. A lot of games have very specific matchmaking requirements. Or your own custom invite flows. You could flag people as friends when they're showing up in the game, that kind of thing. We'll also give you access to the user identity, their Oculus ID, and so you can show a consistent label for them as they go through the game, and that'll be the same label that they see in their friends in Oculus Home and across other applications. So this is a little snippet of code. Again, intent is not to do a deep dive into the implementation or anything like that, but there's a function definition at the top where you can kick off an asynchronous request for a user, and then when that result returns, you can pull a message queue and receive the results and then access the Oculus ID in this case. So we really hope that this will be really simple to drop into as many different engines and environments as possible with a minimum of drama. So friends are neat, but they're not that cool if you can't interact with them. And so we've built a suite of social features in game services. And a number of them are built on an abstraction we call rooms. Rooms are shared spaces in VR. And these include invites, invites so you can invite specific friends to join you in VR, matchmaking so you can find the best possible person out there to play with, and your online status so you can broadcast to your friends what you happen to be doing at that time. So invites let you ask specific friends to join you in VR. On the gear, they'll receive a push notification to the phone. If they don't have the app installed, they'll be taken to the store to install it. And if they do, they'll be dropped right into the game. And we really think you'll enjoy this for two reasons. One is that it lets users, even if they're like sitting on the couch next to their friend, to give a really easy path to get into get a game going. And it's also a nice organic way for users to signal to their friends that they're enjoying this app. So I think it'll be a good way of for app distribution as well. We'll provide a standard VR invite dialog for you to use, but you can also build your own if you so choose. This is a little snippet of what your core message loop might look like. So here we've received a message, inspected it. In this case, it's a join request. And we've chosen to just blindly join the room. In a real app, you might show a confirmation dialog or something like that. So next is matchmaking. Friend invites can be a lot of fun, but if you're building a multiplayer game, you probably want your users to find somebody to play with at any time of day or night. You don't want it just to be if their friends are online or something like that. So we're building a matchmaking service that'll let your users find the best person to play with. This takes into account features such as user ping time, their game-specific skill, and even whether they speak the same language. So if you have use voice over IP, it's a lot more cooler if you can actually talk to each other than if you're in different languages. This is an area we would love to get feedback. There's a million different ways that matchmaking can be built, and I'd love to hear what sorts of games you're building and what sort of matchmaking scenarios you care about. Online status answers the question, what are my friends doing right now? So games will automatically broadcast their status that'll be shown in Oculus Home in the store, so you can see what your friends are playing. And the games can customize them. So if I'm playing a board game app, the app can say, in this case, I'm playing checkers. And so this is neat both because it's a nice way to know which of your friends are online and who's available to play with right now. And also, again, so you can kind of see what your friends are doing. It's a great way to find out what apps might be fun to play. So if you've used all these features, you've got people together in a room, and now you need them to communicate. You want to share their voice, their body motions, their gameplay, all in real time. But this is tough. You need to think about security. You might have users that are stuck behind a firewall or a NAT, and you want to do this all with minimum latency. And so we've built a simple API for peer-to-peer networking, which takes care of those things for you. So in the case of users that are hidden behind a NAT, we'll go through a relay server that we provide. This is actually one of the areas where collaboration with Facebook has really paid off, because Facebook has a network of POPs, points of presence all over the world. So instead of having to travel 200 milliseconds to another continent to do the relay, there's probably one that's located in your region. So like I said, the API is simple. For the packet I/O, there's only two functions. In this case, we've implemented an echo server. It receives a packet in and immediately sends it back out, which is not a terribly exciting gameplay, but a nice example. So we've talked a lot about voice. Voice in VR in particular is incredibly important, much more so than in traditional games. And one thing we've learned is that through Toybox is that traditional voice compression does not give great results after 3D spatialization. So this is an area we're actively working on, but we do plan to support a voice feature in the SDK, probably not in the initial release, but shortly, maybe early next year, the first quarter. All right, and finally, we have cloud saves. So users expect to be able to save their game progress and rejoin that game on any account that they might be logged into on any other machine. So we'll let you save a blob of data along with your own custom metadata. And one thing that's really neat about this is that users can share this save game with their friends. And so if you get a personal record in a racing game, you can share that with a friend, and then they can race against your ghost car or something like that. So those are a few of the core game services we're building. There's a few other things like leaderboards and achievements that are coming as well that I won't be going into detail about. So in commerce, we're also building in-app purchases. So the reason for this is that paid apps work really well for a lot of developers, but sometimes you want more flexibility. My favorite example is you might ship a free demo, and then let users upgrade on the fly once they've completed the first level and the user's really confident they're going to love the game. So we've built a VR interface for in-app purchases, so users can confirm a transaction with their credit card without ever taking a headset off, and there's minimal friction. This will support both unlocks, like the example of unlocking the next level, and consumables, like you buy a gold coin that you can spend in the game, that kind of thing. The checkout interface works consistently across VR and PC, or sorry, Gear VR and PC for a minimum of portability trouble. So the screenshot here is from our first in-house app using in-app purchases. It's called Oculus Arcade. We announced it this morning. And so you can see we're going to buy Galga. It costs $2.99. The developer has configured the price and the items for sale in our web-based developer console. So the user goes and chooses the purchase there, and they're taken to the in-VR purchase confirmation page, uses their credit card we have on file, and they confirm their identity with a PIN. This is the API definition for in-app purchases. It's very simple, just 4 functions. If you've used any of these services in other places, it should be very familiar to you. All right, so those are a few of the items we have coming up this year. We'll be delivering the initial release of the SDK in the winter of 2015 with support for both C and C# on Gear VR and PC. If you're an Unreal Engine user, we expect you can use the C SDK initially. We will be providing first-class Unreal support early next year. So yeah, I would love your feedback on this. This is my email address if you have any comments or questions. What features are you most excited about? What are we missing? Let us know. We're definitely happy to work with you on this. So yeah, these are the early days of a whole new medium, and it's quite possible somebody in this room is going to build the next killer VR app. So I really can't wait to see what you build. Thank you. And now if anyone has questions for either Gareth or I, there's a microphone somewhere in that corner, I think.
Can you put your email back up, please?
Yes, sir.
Hi there. Greg with D-Sky. I have a question about the voice. You said it was challenging with, I guess, delays and positional audio.
Right.
We feel it's pretty, I mean, we've done some primitive social experiences, just hacking them together ourselves with network layers. We feel it's pretty high priority. So can you just detail a little more about what the winter 2015 release is on voice and when you feel it will be positional?
We don't currently plan to ship voice support this year. That's not to say we won't, but it's not something we're committing to. But depending on feedback we get, certainly if tons of people are excited about getting first-class support for it, we would definitely evaluate that.
And do you think it like a parallel library, like something already being used on PlayStation or Xbox Connect would work in the interim?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons for that it's not in the initial release is that it is something that you can do with other off-the-shelf components. It requires a little bit more configuration and intervention, but it's certainly possible. And so, we're trying to pick up the initial things that are like things that really rely on user identity or that are particularly hard for a developer to do on their own.
Thanks.
Yeah. I could repeat your question if you don't want to.
Oh, I'm so short. Okay. I was just curious, you guys have illustrated 2 distinctly different avatar styles, and you talked about believability versus accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
What are the different behaviors and interactions you've seen between the very sort of cartoon-based, non-human cat heads and the very abstract but more believable, realistic avatars and blue hands?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, the avatars that we showed here are just ones that we've chosen. You, of course, can do whatever you want with your avatars. And we have a mix of humanoid and cartoony. I actually haven't seen a lot of difference between the two. What's amazing, I can mention a little bit about visual abstraction, is the minute you hear the voice, your brain just instantly fills in that person is that avatar. And the avatar may add a little bit of personality or not if they've picked a particularly kind of cartoony or abstract avatar. But really, they're just placeholders and representations of a person, right? And the voice is so powerful. For instance, in Toybox, I used Toybox with a female, and even though the heads are blue and have a masculine jaw, the minute she spoke, it was her, right? You're not paying attention to those visual features. The voice just kind of takes over. So I haven't actually seen that much difference between the two. Have you at all?
No, I mean, I've seen a number of different art styles, and some of the things we've toyed with are kind of what you guys have alluded to about bringing personality out through design in different manners, but I would expect different types of social interactions potentially from different styles. You know, someone who's a cat might be treated a little differently than someone who looks like a person.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, we really see the personality come through in a lot of body motion and voice. Those are the two higher order bits for personality at this point, not necessarily how they look, but I'm sure that's a component of that as well. Cool. We had a question down here, so we'll repeat it.
Okay, so for rooms, is that more of a dashboard type of thing, or is it kind of like the first loading screen into the game?
The actual Rooms API has no visual representation. It's whatever the game wants it to be. So, and it's fairly flexible, so it can map onto lobbies, which would be sort of your entry point into the game. But it can also be sort of the core data model. If you have a game that's, you know, ongoing and people can join and leave, it's the mechanism by which you'd be notified of that. But as far as the actual visual representation, that's entirely up to the developer.
And also, for rooms, do you guys plan on making kind of a home room? Like I have my own personal room where people can join me online, or is it kind of just public and you can create them as you will?
I think you as a developer get to choose how you want to represent that to your users. In our representation in Gear VR, we give you the choice of public rooms and private rooms, and you can create either. The distinction being that private rooms, you can invite specific people, and public, anyone can go in or out. So I think it's really up to you the kind of experience you want to provide through your app.
Okay.
Yep. Cool. Go ahead.
Hey guys, so particularly regarding the SDK itself, it looks like it's very third-party-ish when it comes down to integrations with like popular engines. We were talking about Unreal support in later next year and everything. Unity has gone a lot of work to actually have internal integration with like Oculus. So are we expecting to see, I guess, like a revival of re-adding plugins into our projects like we did back in the day, or can we just expect it to be just another Unity update?
I don't think that's something I can say for certain because we're not far enough along. Like we haven't had those conversations yet. I think it would be very likely for it to show up as a built-in feature, as the rendering SDK has, and similar on Unreal. But that's not. We're not quite there yet.
Okay, yeah. The reason particularly is because Unity already has their own networking API. They already have all their things, so it just sounds kind of interesting in conflicts.
I think like for any single feature, they're like fairly comparable, and so you might choose to use one or the other. And the thing where it gets pretty interesting is where it's all tied into your identity in the Oculus system, right? So it's like you can invite your friend by an ID and then send them messages by that ID, and so they all sort of like work together in a holistic way. If you just need to send like, you know, do some networking, that alone, I think it's a little less compelling.
Awesome. And as a final point, particularly in the commerce section, I don't know if it's just me, but I've noticed like a decline when it comes to like the trends in revenue through ads versus like just in-app purchases. Like, is there a reason? Have you guys ever really considered that? And have you walked away or consider embracing in the future, and why?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So particularly back in the day, like you used to have like any app store flooded with a lot of free apps that just like powered by ads. But I'm noticing that a lot of popular APIs right now are leaning more towards like the in-app purchases. Is there any interest in that, or just are you guys staying away from it for a particular reason, or?
I mean, I don't know if I can speak like specifically about store policies, but our store is a moderated store, right? So we, you know, I think if you go look at like the iOS App Store and Google Play, anyone can post anything, and there's like very separate dynamics there. But we're like very much focused on quality applications, especially because VR is like so quality sensitive, right? If somebody puts up like a really bad application, like that's going to sour somebody on the whole medium for a while, and so I think we'll exert a certain level of control over like what sorts of things go in.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
I have a question down here.
You just mentioned messages, which didn't come up in the talk. Is there going to be just a like standard composite message interface, or is that going to be something we implement?
The question was whether I'd mentioned messages and whether there's like an actual standard message interface. I was not speaking very precisely, so I just meant messages in the sense of like sending a packet to another person, not a messaging product. You could certainly imagine building that, and it's something we've talked about, but probably to start with, that would be something that's like built within a particular app, and not something as part of the system.
Hey,
Go ahead.
With launching a room from another program, and they mentioned photos from timeline of Facebook, I assume it's somewhat similar to an intent style system like Android intent. Is there plans for, or the idea of like the intent stack, where I may want to show a photo and then get back into my app?
You should be able to do that today, actually. We more or less work with the standard Android activity stack model.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember, there's a little bit of weirdness around because all of the apps end up being single task, and so task switching, if you need to like return something, can be a little bit different. But if you just like launch a new activity and then close it down, it should work exactly like what you're talking about.
And what about of the possibility of shared experiences? You have the shared rooms and an intent to a room keeping a shared experience with multiple people. Has there been any thought with that?
Can you say that again?
So with the photo example, going from my app, and it's a shared room with 2 people in, and then launching the Photos apps.
With those same 2 people?
With those same 2 people.
That is, we've like batted around scenarios like that. We haven't done a ton of thinking about sort of like cross-app social experiences because that kind of makes the API surface area a lot more complicated, because then you have to think, you don't have this implicit app anymore, and you've got a bunch of trust relationship things. If you have some cool use cases, we would definitely take a look at them, but it's not something we're thinking about now.
Okay, well, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, question down here.
Leaderboards, you mentioned it passing leaderboard and achievement support. Is that planned for winter release?
I actually don't know.
What was the question?
Yeah, repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. Is leaderboards and achievements planned for the winter release?
Yes.
Yes.
I just committed to my team to go.
Okay,
It's the decider.
yeah. I think so I see 2 more hands. Let's take 2 more
Question
questions. Oh, we have 3. We'll take last 3 questions then. Go ahead, please.
So I noticed that in the demos that you guys have shown for the avatars, there's like no body.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is some like inverted kinetic challenges there. Can you guys just comment a little bit about that? Because I think for a lot of social experiences, we do need to show like the full body.
Yeah, so everyone heard the question. So yeah, we absolutely would love to show the whole body, but IK is really, really hard, in particular making it look realistic, right? And I think what's remarkable in Toybox is that without the body, it just works, right? Yeah, it would be better to have a body, but if the body doesn't look right, then it completely takes you out, because you're just focused on why is the body in this strange position. So we're really focused on heads and hands, and getting those 2 pieces into the system and making them look accurate. And I think once we nail that, which will take a while, then we'll look at getting more of the body in the system.
Do you have some recommendations from your learnings as to how to deal with body at the current stage?
We don't. I mean, so we're not showing those. That's what our choice, and that drives up the believability. If you guys are able to get bodies in there and make it work, then go for it. One interesting thing that we did try in cinema, where you're sat down, in some of the tests we did have torsos in there, and they were very simple. They rotate. They were basically filling the chair. And when we took them out, we actually didn't notice a lot of difference. So we're like, well, they're not adding a lot, and you're focusing on the torso and why doesn't it move too much. And so taking it out actually helped the believability there.
One other thing there is that you're much more sensitive to your own body, because there's always going to be a mismatch with your mental model of where your body is compared to like other people's bodies. So you could certainly make a different decision where like you could see another person's body but not see your own, and that might be a reasonable trade-off depending on how good of a job you could do.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, we had 2 more questions down here. Go ahead, please.
Regarding achievements, will they be tied to a consistent player profile, something like Gamerscore, or more like game-specific badges?
It'll be tied to your profile. So I'm not sure I understand
Do you
the
wanna
distinction,
repeat?
but will achievements be tied to your user profile? Is that the question?
If it'll be some kind of consistent marker, something like Gamerscore, or if they'll just be game
Oh, you mean would they only be visible in the game versus like on a global user profile kind of thing?
Will achievements from multiple games kind of stacked into a single score?
I don't think the current plans that it's all single game, but we will probably show them in your profile collectively at some point, but I don't think we've worked out the exact product behavior there yet.
And last question.
I moved up here.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So in terms of the avatar that's linked to the profile, will there be a default representation or something to choose from? Would it be portable such that you could include it in your game? And would it be customizable?
So at this point, the only place we let you have an avatar is in Social Cinema and Social Photos, and you pick from a set. And there's, male, female, and a lot of diversity in there, and humanoid and abstract. For now, those are part of our applications, and we're leaving it up to you to do whatever you want to do with avatars. I think in future, we'll take a look at that and see what we can provide for developers. But at this point, it's do what you think is right for your application.
Cool, thanks.
Okay.
All right.
That's it. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great time tonight.